Are we live? I think we're live. I think we're live. If you lot can see me and you guys can hear me, let me know in the chat. But what's happening, people? Welcome to my first ever live stream here on my channel. It's different. It's different not being on United View, not having Owen or Flex or Josh doing all of the technical stuff behind the scenes. I've had to do a lot of learning. Guys, in the last couple weeks. It's a bit different in comparison to recording videos, but we are here, we are live, and obviously I can see a lot of you guys in the chat. I can see Tabislo, I can see Aminor, I can see Keegan, Dean, all of you guys. Really appreciate it. This is my first live here, and I'm going to do weekly Friday night lives, 8 p.m. 8 p.m. we're going to do Friday night lives. Call it Friday Night Lights, whatever you like. If you can tell, I'm a J. Cole fan, and that's one of his mixtapes when he first came out. But if you are here, make sure you guys like. You know how it goes when you come into the stream. Make sure you hit the like button and get involved in the chat, because we've got so much Manchester United stuff to talk about. I'm kind of new to this software that I'm using, guys, so I apologize. I don't know how to pin comments on the bottom as we usually do, but I will read it out. I promise you guys, I will read out your comments. So much happening in the Manchester United world, and I'm going to start with actually the more recent conversations from today, talking about Alejandro Garnacho getting the number 7 shirt. I want to know what you guys' thoughts are. I personally think that should be left for now. I think it's a bit premature giving him the number 7 shirt. Of course, I can imagine how much he wants that number 7 shirt. I know Jadon Sancho is probably looking at it thinking, why am I not getting the number 7 shirt? Maybe he knows his time at Manchester United could be limited. But Garnacho being offered the number 7 shirt and the talk surrounding the number 7 shirt, I feel like for so long that shirt has held too much weight. It has held too much weight. And he's only had, I think, I don't know what you lot think. Tabislaw in the chat saying it's way too early. I agree. I think it's way too early as well. I think a player should have one full year of consistent football in the starting 11 before they get the opportunity to wear that number 7 shirt. I remember it was Memphis Depay that had it. I remember Di Maria had it. I actually have a Manchester United shirt that says number 7 on it the year that we brought Di Maria, and I've never gotten another number 7 shirt ever again, just because it was a traumatic season with Di Maria, if you guys remember. But I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that it's way too early. Aminor in the chat saying, where's the StreamYard link? I'm not using StreamYard today, so people can't join, but as the channel continues to grow, hopefully I will do a lot more like call-in shows where people can join in through the StreamYard and have their thoughts to share on whatever discussions. But obviously we're talking specifically about Garnacho, who's had a breakout season, I think, for Manchester United, and I'm really excited to see how he goes next season, how he progresses, because you look at the academy players, you look at people who have come through Manchester United's academy. I think I'm most excited about him, and I haven't been that excited about a Manchester United academy player in a couple of years. You look at Anthony Elanga that came through the academy. You look at Scott McTominay, who's come through the academy. They are the regular first team players at the moment in terms of, actually Anthony Elanga he's not a regular first team player. He's probably going to get sold. I anticipate this season. Big up to everyone in the chat getting involved in the discussions. I'm glad that I'm not the only one that seems to think that Manchester United giving Garnacho the number 7 shirt. But you know what? It could go two ways, in my opinion. It could go in a way that it motivates him and you see him have a breakout season because he aspires to be so like Cristiano Ronaldo, which is one thing I respect about him, and I admire that about him. The fact that he plays for Argentina and he idolizes Cristiano Ronaldo. That's never seen. That is absolutely never seen. So that is one way that it could go. But the other way it could go is simply just a downhill way. I feel like shirt numbers in particular should be earned, not given. Whether it's the number 9 shirt, whether it's the number 11 shirt, whether it's number 7 shirt, number 10. I think those are the numbers that tend to hold the most weight. I think number 8 sometimes holds a bit of weight, but I think predominantly it's the 9, 10, 11 and 7 shirts that hold a lot of weight. So I feel like that particular shirt, we should wait before we give it to Garnacho, but I'm very excited to see how he is this season, especially with, I'm going to come into it, Manchester United signing strikers. What does that mean for Rashford? What does that mean for Garnacho? We can talk about that a bit, but I'm excited to see how his progression onto the left-hand side goes, especially with, I expect Rashford might be playing a bit more through the middle. He could be even playing, we could actually be playing with like a number 9 and a second striker where Rashford could play in my opinion. But that's just a quick introduction on the first topic, Alejandro Garnacho. A few of you guys in the chat, and as always, I appreciate it. Fuad says it's too early for him to wear the number 7 shirt. I agree. I feel like it is too many shirts, too early. Keegan said that shirt has ended many careers. How many people have actually worn that number 7? I'm trying to think how many people have worn that number 7 shirt over the last 10 years. I can think of, did Alexis Sanchez wear it? I think Alexis Sanchez wore the number 7. Number 7, he wore it. I know Di Maria wore it, obviously. Memphis Depay wore it. And nobody wore it, I think, after Alexis Sanchez. And then Ronaldo came back and wore it again. Cavani, am I wrong? I think Cavani wore the number 7 and he had to give it up for Ronaldo, which was actually unlucky for him in that instance. But it's interesting because Dean in the comments saying, I'm expecting 15 goals plus from him. I'm not sure when you're expecting that, Dean. I'm not sure when you're expecting 50. Are you expecting that next season? Because in order to get 15 goals plus, I think he has to play a bit more regularly. Fatah in the comments saying Valencia. Yes, Valencia wore the number 7 shirt as well. Michael Owen, shout out to Troy in the comments, saying, can't believe we gave Owen the number 7. A lot of people have had that number 7 shirt that, like Keegan said, has not deserved to wear that number 7 shirt. So the next person that wears it, I do hope it'll be someone very worthy of it and someone who's proven that they deserve to wear that number 7 shirt. And I'll be happy with Alejandro Garnacho wearing it, I think, in the next year or two. I think in order to get that number 7 shirt, a person who wears number 7, in my opinion, you lot can let me know what you guys think, but a person that wears number 7 should not be a rotation or bench player. They need to be a starter. They have to be a starter for me. There's no way someone who wears number 7 can be sitting on the bench. Obviously, football is quite different. If anyone watches the NBA, you would know that it's quite common for NBA teams to retire shirts. Obviously, that doesn't really happen in football unless you're Birmingham City and you retire Jude Bellingham's shirt after he leaves to go to Borussia Dortmund. But in my opinion, yeah, number 7, you should not be on the bench wearing it. And Cavani was just unlucky. I think I remember the Cavani thing because he was meant to stay for one year. He was on a 1-year contract. They extended him for another year, unknowingly that Manchester United were going to land Cristiano Ronaldo that summer. I'm sure if he had left, I'm sure if Ronaldo, he was aware that Ronaldo was coming, I don't think he would have stayed. And as a result, yeah, he just ended up having to give up that number 7 shirt. But moving on to some topic discussions today, of course, like I said, strictly good vibes. I want you guys to interact as much as you can in the comments section. I will read it out. I'm sorry I can't pin it because I'm not on StreamYard. I'm using OBS at the moment. But the topic of discussion, and it's been the topic of discussion for the last 3-4 weeks, is Manchester United's transfer window. But I feel like we can't talk about the transfer window without talking about the takeover, because I feel like the takeover is a big part of what is keeping us back from moving a lot more quicker in the transfer window. Now, I know the last news that we've had was last week when Reuters came out and said that they were anticipating that Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, that's the full name, that's how you say it, he was expecting complete, what was it? Basically, what's the word? He was basically expecting complete, I don't know what the word is. The word has gone out of my mind. But he was expecting personal, guys, I've lost my train of thoughts. I'm trying to find the word that they used in Reuters to describe it. But they said that Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation was exclusivity. They were expecting complete exclusivity for the takeover steps, the next steps of the takeover. And it seems that since that has happened, it's been silence. We've not heard much. I've heard today reports from Reuters. I saw a video, I think it was on the Stretford paddock, with a reporter from Reuters who said that the Glazers are looking to maybe force the hand of the bidders for another bid. Now, if that happens, and you lot already know, if anyone's here following me from United View, you already know that I'm sick and tired of talking about the takeover, yet here I am talking about the takeover. But if the Glazers are holding out just to stretch that final bid for maybe a bit more money, I think that would absolutely hinder the rest of our transfer window, especially with the football financial year ending 30th of June, and especially with, it would be nice to start the new financial year with new owners. The Glazers could be, if you guys want to look at that video, I saw it on the Stretford paddock social media, where it was the reporter from Reuters who did the article saying that they might hold out for an increased bid, whether it's from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, or is from Sheikh Jassim. I don't want that. And I'm glad, shout out to everyone in the chat, because I am absolutely sick and tired of bids. Aminor says, please, no more bids. Troy Taylor says, no more bids, please. Fatah says, another bid, what? Shout out. Tabislaw says, me too, I hate the takeover. It's absolutely exhausting. I don't know. I'm glad a lot of people feel like that, because I feel like as a lot of clubs are able to move along with their transfer window, with their transfer targets, there's just this cloud over Manchester United about the transfers. And I know people are talking about, Eric Ten Hag is getting frustrated, etc. That's just speculation. But I'd anticipate that he would. Now, hopefully, I'm hoping if some of you guys, if some of you guys are Muslims, it's Eid next week. So I'm hoping that it'll be an Eid gift to Manchester United fans, where this takeover stuff just ends next week and there's a confirmed winner in this race. I know that it went from Sir Jim Ratcliffe being in the lead for so long, then it went to Sheikh Jassim putting, I think it was his fifth and final bid in, which was the preferred version, the preferred bid in terms of longevity, in terms of money that the Glazers could walk away with immediately. So I'm just hoping next week it will just come to an end and we can move on with our transfer targets, because I feel like for so long we could just talk about ifs. We could talk about this player would fit into Manchester United, we could talk about that player would fit into Manchester United. But if we are going to compete, obviously, at a certain level, if we're going to compete at a certain level, if we're going to bring in number of players of a certain level, then I think this transfer stuff has to end. And, for far so long, in comparison to previous Manchester United managers, when you look at Jose Mourinho, when you look at Van Gaal, a lot of managers always got their second, third options. I remember we finished second with Jose Mourinho, and what did we end up with that window? Do you guys remember that window? I think we ended up with Fred and someone else on a free transfer. I'm hoping that comes to an end. But it's wishful thinking. Like Tabislaw said, I said that, yeah, you're right. I did say the same thing when it was Eid al-Fitri. Because I'm just wishful, I'm just hopeful. I honestly thought when this saga started, the takeover saga started in November, when the news came out that the Glazers were looking to either put the club up for sale or bring in financial reinforcements. I thought it would be a thing by March. We would have new owners expected, and then by the end of the season, these new owners would come in. But it seems like the Rain Group, it seems like the Glazers are taking their absolute sweet time with it. And I'm not one to speculate about what I see on social media, but I've seen a lot of social media posts coming from royal family members in Qatar that have a direct relation to Sheikh Jassim, whether they are kids, nephews, cousins, etc., or have the Al Thani name, because that's the royal family name in Qatar. I've seen a lot of them on social media congratulating Sheikh Jassim already, saying best of luck with your new challenge of Manchester United. etc. So I'm not the I don't want to get too what's the word? I don't want to get too caught up in social media and what I see on Instagram posts, etc. But it's given me a tiny bit hope. Dean Cyrus in the chat says, Mina, who would you prefer? Honestly, you guys might think I'm a bit weird for saying this, but I don't have a preference. In terms of the club, I would prefer the offer that Qatar are putting on the table. No debt, buying out the team in outright cash, promising to invest in not just the men's team, the women's team, the academy. I feel like you look at the academy, the Manchester United academy, and we've fallen so far behind. We were once one of the best academies in the UK. We were one of the best academies for developing young players. We were going to the UEFA Youth Champions League. We were winning titles. We were winning stuff. And we've just fell behind. We fell behind to Chelsea. We fell behind to City. And now other teams as well. Arsenal are catching up. West Ham are catching up. And, I feel like Jim Ratcliffe's offer, his bid, it was so focused on the men's team. And I know a lot of you guys might be, you just follow the men's team, but I follow the women's team, and I like to follow the academy when I can. So I'm leaning more towards Qatar for that reason, simply because of the plan. Now, if they're going to bring us Mbappe, I can be, unrealistic here, because I can say, if they're going to bring us Mbappe, I wouldn't be too mad about that. But on the topic of transfers, let's get into the topic of transfer windows, because someone, SK in the chat, just brought it up saying, do you think Chelsea will accept the bid for Mount this time round? So, if some of you guys do or do not know, Mason Mount bid today went through. I think it's the third bid from Manchester United, 55 million plus 5 million add-ons. That's a jump from the prior offer that Manchester United put in, and it's not really what Chelsea are valuing him at. I think Chelsea came with a counter offer of 60 million base fee and then 7 million add-ons. Manchester United have now gone back 55 million and 5 million add-ons. Now, over the last few days, guys, and big up everyone in the chat, everyone getting involved in the conversation. I'm going to try to pick out as many chats as I can, because I really want to hear you guys' thoughts. I'm starting to see the vision. I'm starting to see the vision that Ten Hag has for Mason Mount. I went back and watched a bunch of footage, not just from his time at Chelsea, but I watched him in his time at Vitesse in the Dutch league. He was on loan. I think it was the 17-18 season. I might be wrong. But he was on loan at Vitesse with a number of other Chelsea players, and he was the only standout Chelsea player on loan there. He came on, I think, against Utrecht, which Ten Hag was at the time, scored. Then Ten Hag at Ajax continued to monitor him. He was interested in him when he was at Chelsea, but he was not for sale. And I'm starting to warm up to the idea of thinking 2/8, would that be bad? That would just mean Casemiro has a lot of work to do. He will have a lot of work to do. And I want to hear what you guys think. Do you guys think that means Mason Mount will play in the more advanced 8 position and Bruno would play a bit more deeper, partnering Casemiro? Do you think that they would alternate? It'll be interesting to see, because I feel like the more that I watch footage about Mason Mount, the more I kind of get why Erik Ten Hag could want him. And one thing I think Ten Hag likes, from what I've seen about the players that we've specifically been linked to, is he likes work rate. He likes players that, I know this is a cliche thing, but players that run, work hard. He likes players that have tenacity, aggression, and it'll be interesting to see where Mason Mount kind of fits into that. Now, for 55 million, 1 year left on his contract, I'm not too sure if that's the right price. But one thing that I've realized, obviously, about transfer windows more time is that players go for the price that your club value you for. Right now, I could be a footballer and I could think that I'm worth 50 million. But the club that I'm playing for might think that I'm worth 20 million. And at the end of the day, I'm going to go for that price. So when players go for an outrageous price tag, it could be Anthony, Sancho, Maguire. Reoccurring theme here. This is all Man United players and that we've paid stupid money for. A lot of the time, we would be the only club that would pay that price tag for that player. But in the instance of Mason Mount, let me know what you guys think in terms of the price tag, in terms of the player that we're getting, and in terms of how you think he would fit into Manchester United. Someone actually in the chat, Carnivore, shout out to Carnivore in the chat, said, I think we'll end up paying 60 million for Mount. I do too. One thing I think Todd Bowley is a hustler. I think he is. If he can go to Saudi Arabia, yeah, guys, he went to Saudi Arabia and he got, 10 million for Ziyech, 20 million for Koulibaly. He got all these wages off his books. He will come now to a direct rival and he would not obviously want to strengthen his direct rival. He doesn't want to improve them. He doesn't want to make it easy for them to buy their player. But one thing that I've seen consistently is that Mason Mount's team is pushing for a move. And not only are they pushing for a move, they're also pushing to say, listen, if you do not let us leave this summer and you don't accept a suitable bid, that's the word that I've seen quite often, suitable. If you don't accept a suitable bid for Mason Mount, they will just run his contract down and leave and go to Manchester United next season. Now, some of you guys remember last year, Frankie de Jong, I got PTSD from that summer, simply because we were chasing him for so long, and it seemed that we weren't getting him in the end, and for far too long we were hearing in the media, personal terms have been agreed, he wants to join, he doesn't want to join, he wants to join, it's like he loves me not, he loves me not. I don't want that this season. And Tabislav, that's a very, very valid point in the chat. Tabislav says, I don't know why we support Chelsea buying Caicedo. Only United can be that stupid. It's true. I don't know why Manchester United are fully allowing Chelsea. We're basically funding some of their transfer for Caicedo. And I agree with a lot of you guys in the chat. I would have Caicedo over Mason Mount. I would be happy with that. I'll be cool with that. But I do feel like this transfer window is the set in stone for the coming seasons. Now, I can only really analyze the transfer window once it's done, once we have the incomings and outgoings. But Mason Mount, I think he will, any midfielder, anybody will come in and strengthen our team. And, you have to think of it like this. You see the experience he has, senior team. See, he comes from senior playing time. Obviously, a lot of people felt like he was getting a lot of playing time at Chelsea because of Lampard, etc. He was a manager favourite, whatever. Champions League experience, we need that. We need that Champions League experience. He's going to come into the dressing room. He's not going to be the most unexperienced player there. He won't be the most unexperienced player there. He will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder, not with Casemiro and Varane, but he can stand shoulder to shoulder to players who have played in Champions League, to players who have won stuff, players that have picked up trophies. He's not lacing the boots of Casemiro or Varane in terms of experience, but he definitely comes with some sort of experience, which I think will be able to capitalise off. Now, I think Chelsea are going to reject this bid. I'll be so shocked if they actually accept the bid, but only time will tell. I feel like there's other midfielders we could have got. Look at Newcastle, for example, signing Tonali, 70 million euros. It's the Premier League pool. Obviously, they've got Champions League football to offer him as well as AC Milan do, but also AC Milan are in a state of financial issues, which a lot of teams in Europe outside of the Premier League are, where they're being forced to sell players for big fees to balance their books before the end of this financial year. I know Porto has a similar problem, which I'm going to come on to that when we talk about Diogo Costa. But it'll be interesting to see if the bid for Mason Mount is accepted now. 55 million plus 5 million in add-ons, which is interesting for, like I said, a player of only 1 year left on their contract. Fatah in the comments says, I think 24-25 season is going to be big. I'm trying to think. That's the following season after this one that's coming. So, and I agree. I think that's what I'm saying. I think this transfer window will be the setting stone for the following seasons to come. And I feel like this will set us up. Like, this is the warm up. I feel like this is the warm up, especially with new ownership hopefully coming in. But I don't see why Manchester United can't have a good transfer window as soon as this takeover stuff is fully, over. On to the next topic of signings. Obviously, I could talk about this Mason Mount thing forever. Aminor actually mentions it in the chat, saying, I'm also vexed about Kim Min-jae transfer. I'm going to come on to that because I'm going to talk about our centre-back targets and who Manchester United are going for. And one thing that actually is so interesting to me, because I feel like this is applicable across every position that we're kind of targeting, maybe except for goalkeeper. But when you look at the 5 strikers that we've been linked to predominantly in the window, we've been linked to Harry Kane, we've been linked to Victor Osimhen, we've been linked to Kolo Muani, we've been linked to Rasmus Højlund, and of recent we've been linked to Mehdi Taremi from Porto. That's 5 different strikers, 5 different playing styles. All 5 of them have different playing styles. I think maybe Taremi and Kane have somewhat similar in terms of their playmaking abilities, but to me, their attributes, their abilities are all different. And I feel like that's the same when it comes to the centre-back targets. I feel like we've been linked to Kim Min-jae, and we've been linked most recently to Axel Disasi. 2 different players. Obviously, they're both right-sided centre-backs, but they're quite different in terms of how they play, which is Manchester United, isn't it? It's typical of Manchester United. But we're going to talk about Andre Onana, because just before I went live, there was news about an hour and a half ago that Manchester United obviously have met with Andre Onana's agent, who's flew out to Manchester to come and meet with them, who's looking for a transfer. 50 million euros is the base fee from Inter Milan. And guys, 50 million for Andre Onana versus 60 million for Diogo Costa. It's a good problem to have. It's a good decision to make, because like I said, goalkeepers quite similar. You want a sweeper keeper, you want a keeper that comes out and commands their box. Diogo Costa, when I've watched him over the last year and a half, has been the standout signing for me. I would have always said if you asked me 4 or 5 months ago, who would you rather sign, Diogo Costa or Onana, I would have said Diogo Costa. Now, I'm still very much Diogo Costa, but I'm not against the idea of signing Andre Onana. Now, my only concern about him, the only concern that I have about Andre Onana, sometimes I feel like he might just do what he wants. Casemiro's going to look behind him and be like, why is my goalkeeper in front of me and not behind me? Like, I feel like his recklessness, and I wouldn't say it's recklessness all the time, but I feel like opposition teams, and especially in the Premier League, where teams capitalise on mistakes so easily, I feel like Manchester United cannot afford to have a goalkeeper making issues like that. But Andre Onana, Diogo Costa, I don't think it's much of a debate, because I would be happy with, like Carnival says in the chat, I'll be very happy no matter if we get Costa or Onana. I'd be happy with both of them. One has a 60 million release clause, the other has a 50 million price tag. I'd be happy with either of them. And on the topic of them, I can't talk about them without talking about David De Gea. Because David De Gea, I think, boys to men is end of the road. He's come to the end of the road at his Manchester United career, and he's been a wonderful servant of the club. I think he's been a great servant on the club. He's been a good character. I don't know if you guys remember about that story that Dean Henderson said that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was going to give him an opportunity to be the number 1 keeper, and De Gea went to the higher ups at the Manchester United board and made a complaint, and that's how he kept his spot for that Ole season. I don't know how true that is, but I think this season has been a horrible season in terms of the hate that David De Gea has gotten. But I do think it's the end of the road. This time next week, guys, hopefully I'll be doing a Friday Night Lights episode, Eid special, of course, and it will be the 30th of June, I think. Yeah, it will be the 30th of June, and it will be the day that David De Gea's contract ends. I don't think he'll re-sign by then. And it's quite telling, I think, as a player, when there's no bids. There's no offers are coming on the table for you in the top 5 European leagues. that's quite telling of where your career is headed. Obviously, I saw reports and I've actually heard from people in Saudi Arabia that there's offers on the table for David De Gea to play in Saudi Arabia next year. I've heard of 2 different offers. I'm not at ITK or any of that stuff, guys. I know people that play in the Saudi leagues, etc. And I've heard about 2 offers from 2 teams, roughly around 60 to 70 million for 2 seasons to come out and play in Saudi Arabia. That's about 35 million per year. I'll take that and run if I was David De Gea. I mean, I think the best goalkeeper in the Saudi league is Ospina. I think he's the best goalkeeper. So David De Gea, he's not going to be playing in his national team anytime soon. I think he should swallow his pride. And guys, I don't live anywhere near Owen, but you know how Owen always has sirens when he's on stream? I just managed, yeah, there was sirens just passing my house. Sorry about that. But David De Gea, I think he should swallow his pride and retire from international football. I don't think he's going back to playing for Spain ever again. I think in the Euros next year and the World Cup 3-4 years later, I don't think he will be playing anytime soon. Tabislaw says, what was even that? It was sirens. It was police ambulance sirens. I'm not too sure. Carnival makes a similar point that I made. Not having lots of clubs trying to sign David De Gea on a free this summer should tell fans a lot. Carnival also said, I have wanted David De Gea out of United for 4 seasons now. That's a bit harsh. 4 seasons is a bit harsh. Aminor also agrees, is saying, yeah, that is telling that no clubs are offering to buy David De Gea. But Tabislaw says, I would rather keep David De Gea and sign other priority signings, but it looks like it's over. SK says Anana is much tested under high-pressured games than Costa is. You're right, because if anybody can go back to the World Cup against Morocco, I forgot his name, but it's the same guy from Sevilla that scored. Well, he scored, but it wasn't his goal technically because he headed the ball onto Maguire's head and then Maguire headed it in. But he did a same thing to Diogo Costa, where he just disrupted the box. He's a very tall guy. I think he's like 6'4", 6'5", Moroccan striker, and he just disrupted the box, and Diogo Costa had a howler. So I do remember that mistake, and I know a lot of people are quite selective with memory because they just think back to the most recent game. So they'll think about, Champions League final against Manchester City, how Andre Onana was performing. El Nassiri, yes, that's his name. Thank you, SK. El Nassiri. He was actually Morocco's top goal scorer in the World Cup. But Diogo Costa, I think, is young. He's gonna make mistakes that he will learn from. Similar to if you guys remember David De Gea's first year or and a half, I'd say, maybe even first 2 years, he was crumbling in the spotlight. He was crumbling on the spotlight, and I feel like Diogo Costa would just have to learn from that. Aminor says, would you sign Pickford, Mina? Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. I like Pickford as a person. He makes me laugh whenever I watch him. I wouldn't even put him in my fantasy football team. Who do I have in my fantasy football team? I normally have Pope and Raya as my... actually, no, I have Pickford on my bench. But that's because Everton were in relegation, so I didn't put him in my FPL. I kept Pope as my goalkeeper during the FPL season. But I would not sign Pickford just because I feel like Everton would try get money. Everton would try get money from us. What do you guys think would a price tag even be? I'm not even too sure what the price tag would even be for Pickford, but I can imagine them saying something like 50-60 million, which I think is quite outrageous. But on the topic of strikers, and I'm glad a lot of people are agreeing that Pickford is not Manchester United quality. That's good. On the topic of strikers, obviously we've been linked to quite a few. Like I said, we've been linked to Kolo Muani, Rasmus Højlund. We've been linked to Mehdi Taremi, Harry Kane, Victor Osimhen. Now, a lot of you guys, if you see me on United View, you know where I stand. You know where I stand in terms of who I wanted throughout the whole season. I was always, Osimhen hype. I was always on the Osimhen hype. But as the season went on, I wasn't too against having the idea of having Harry Kane. For me, it's just a price tag, 100 million for someone. Yes, guaranteed goals, guaranteed probably 2-3 years at his best, guaranteed to help you fill those gaps that we have where our strikers are not scoring much. But for 100 million with 1 year left on his contract and the thought of having to deal with Daniel Levy, no thank you. I remember Berbatov, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the interview when Berbatov talks about his transfer to Manchester United, and he talks about how difficult Levy made it for him to leave. I don't want another one of that. But what's interesting to me is of recent how we've been linked to Mehdi Taremi from Porto. If some of you guys don't know him, Iranian striker, only started playing in the Portuguese league about 3 seasons ago. He started playing in the Portuguese league, and he averages about 25 goals a season, double-digit assists. You could get easy, I think you could get 35 to 40 goals assists from him per season. Only downside is, for me, his age. He's 30. I have to apply the same logic if I'm going to say that, Harry Kane, his age, price tag doesn't match up, then I have to be the same with Mehdi Taremi, especially because of his lack of experience in the top 5 leagues. He's playing in Portuguese league. He came over quite late in his career. He was playing in Iran, and then I think in the UAE, I think he was, if I'm not wrong. But he's out of contract next year with Porto. Porto are looking to offload him. They're listening to offers for around 30k, or 30 million, not 30k, sorry, 30 million euros. And I think, if I'm not wrong, he had a release clause, but due to that, because he's coming to his last year of his contract, that release clause, they might just accept anything rather than losing him on a free. I know they're going to try to offload quite a few players, and they are also interested in quite a few Manchester United players. I know they're interested. Alex Telles wants to go back to Porto and just, resume his footballing career there. So if we could throw him there as part of a deal, that would be interesting. But if we could get 2 strikers for the price of 1, I don't know. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. What you guys think about the idea of getting 2 strikers for the price of 1. So whether that's a Kolo Muani and Taremi, Højlund and Taremi, whether it's another striker, maybe getting Thuram on a free with Harry Kane, whether it's getting Thuram on a free and Osimhen. What do you guys think? Because I do feel like we need the depth up front, because any striker is, they're one injury away from missing games, and as a result, we will be missing goals. And you can't bring a striker in, look at Victor Osimhen, look at Mehdi Taremi, who's actually, he hasn't had the best injury record in the last season. Harry Kane, who's had a better injury record. And then Højlund and Kolo Muani, who are a lot younger, they don't have long-term injuries. But we need 2 strikers. I don't know. That's how I feel this transfer window. Whether we could get one on a free and one on a like a big fee, that would be nice. Whether we could get 2 on like average prices, so like 50-60 million for 2 strikers, that wouldn't be too bad. Let me see what the chat is saying. Tabislo says Osimhen 130 big M. Nah, that's just stupid. Why is that stupid? I don't think that's as outrageous as a lot of people think. Aminul says, why not sign Højlund in the summer, then Ivan Toney in January 2024 transfer window? That wouldn't be too bad. I mean, I don't know. That's a wild idea. I think a lot of clubs with Ivan Toney, I think he's unlucky, because I feel like clubs might just try not to be too around him just because of the baggage he comes with, with his sentencing and everything, his suspension, and everything. But he's I think he would flourish in that Manchester United front line. Absolutely, I think he would flourish. But who else? Let me see what else. Carnival says Donny would be great for Porto. I think Donny would be great anywhere that's not a demanding league like the Premier League. I feel like that's why he didn't flourish on his loan spell in the prior season. And I feel like he definitely is a player that we have to move on. And I'm going to come to that topic about players that we need to move on in a bit. Thuram is probably going to accept Inter Milan's offer as per Fabrizio Romano. Wasn't aware of that. I know that PSG were looking at him, but I didn't know what the latest was that in terms of with PSG. Troy says disagreement is too much money to spend on a risk. Is it too much? Do you guys think spending 120 million on 2 strikers is too much of a risk, rather than spending all that on 1 striker like Osimhen that we might not be guaranteed to flourish in the league, which I think he would. I think he would absolutely terrorise the backlines in the Premier League. Not to the extent of like someone like Haaland, but I do think he could bag 20 goals in the Premier League. One interesting thing with the Højlund bids or the offers or whatever is that Atalanta, it's not the first time we've done business with them. We signed Amad Diallo from them in a couple years ago. I think it was 19 million base fee and then 19 million in add-ons. So they definitely feel like they could get 80 million from us. The reports are saying that 80 million is very much the interest of what Atalanta are willing to listen to. For me, 80 million for a player that's not even hit double-digit goals in the league, I think that's crazy. But that's just my opinion. Carnival says better to wait for Kane next summer. I'm gonna come to that Kane thing because I saw a debate recently, and I want to know what your thoughts are on that. Tabislaw says it's stupid because the Italian and German leagues ain't the same as the Premier League. 130 million can only be used on guaranteed success if you buy only one player. I do agree. Dead and Gone says no, we need to trust Erik ten Hag's ability to develop young strikers. Now, I was about to call him Quinton. If you guys know the joke about Quinton, I was just about to say we have Quinton, the striker coach, but his name's not Quinton, it's Benny McCarthy. We have Benny McCarthy, the striker coach, which makes me a bit optimistic about whoever we sign, especially if we sign younger profiles. I'm quite optimistic about, them adapting and learning. It will always be a learning experience for them. I'm glad people have realised the joke. I'm glad people have realised the joke in the chat. But I'm quite optimistic about, him working with anyone, whether it's Kolo Muani, because I think out of all of the players, Kolo Muani and Højlund are the most raw players in terms of attributes, abilities and skills. I feel like they're the most raw players, and I think that they would learn a lot. You look at Marcus Rashford in the last season. That's his first proper season of him being coached. I think that's his first proper season of him being coached as a striker and, learning the ins and outs of coming in from the wide side, playing in the 9 role in the box, etc. So I'm quite optimistic in that instance. But I know a lot of people are for Harry Kane and, I'm for him too, but I'm for him to a limit. Same with Osimhen. 130 million euros for Osimhen. No, Napoli are just trying to cash it in. They're going to get a decent fee for Kim Min-jae. And I think they might listen to other... I think Lobotka is actually wanted by Saudi Arabia, which is wild to me. Saudi Arabia are not only just targeting players that are nearing the end of their careers, but they're also targeting players that are in their best years or approaching their best years. Now, let's talk about, in the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to talk about the outgoings for the season, because I feel like we will see a lot more outgoings this year. I feel like we will see a lot more... how many? I got a little note here. That's quite a lot of outgoing in terms of players that I anticipate that we'll see going out. The most recent ones that we've seen links to is... Today, I was really actually annoyed when I saw this. I saw a link to Amad Diallo, reports that Erik ten Hag is weighing up options in terms of whether he fits into the first team or not, and if they're looking to let him go out on loan, which apparently his preference is to return back to Sunderland. Now, that is an interesting one, because I feel like to play so well in the Championship is one thing. I feel like his next loan spell should be a Premier League team, whether it's the more newer teams that have come up, Burnley, Sheffield United, etc., Luton, or it's the not the big top 6, top 8. I can't even say top 6 anymore, guys, because there's no such thing as top 6 anymore, because it's top 10. If we take into consideration Brighton, if we take into consideration Fulham, who all finished in European spots this season, is really top 8, top 9, Newcastle included in the top 4 race. That's how the Premier League is looking. But if we do look at that and we think about Amad Diallo, I would prefer for him to go out on loan to a Premier League team, in my honest opinion. Like, Premier League for me is where I feel like he needs to show himself. And I feel like if he wants to go out loan, I don't think Manchester United should let him go out on loan, but I do think that he's entitled to want to go out on loan, because if you're not guaranteed to play, then you don't want to stay. But Aminor has already started listing it. Carnival has said, please, Maguire, leave, please. Now, Aminor has started listing, I think, the order that Aminor wants people to leave in. I'm not going to list it in order because, honestly, I don't have a dislike for players to be like, I want them out of my club, like, to that extent. But in terms of players that we need to part ways with, and another player that I've seen linked, that's a player that's had actually a decent loan spell. In my opinion, out of all the players on loan, especially academy players that are getting first team experience for the first time, Amad Diallo, Hannibal Mejbri and Ethan Laird for me have been the most impressive. Ethan Laird has been unlucky towards the last 3-4 months to get injured and to be left out of squads at QPR for other reasons that I'm aware of, but I don't know if I'm actually allowed to say it. So he's unlucky in that instance. But Hannibal Mejbri and Amad Diallo are two other players that for me have had good loan spells. One at Birmingham City, the other at Sunderland, and they are both potentially on the market this season. There's no off limits. 15 million price tag for Hannibal Mejbri. Borussia Dortmund are interested in him. And I feel like he's really learnt a lot at Birmingham City, especially, like I said, playing senior football, having to adjust to first team football, having to adjust his personality, because a big part of him was he was quite hot-headed. He was quite a flared player, a very passionate player, and he's had to learn at Birmingham City because so often he would pick up. I remember seeing a stat in a few games in a row, he picked up like yellow cards consistently. So he had to play smarter to avoid getting any sort of suspensions. But it's interesting to see that Jadon Sancho is the topic of discussion in the comments. Troy says the Sancho one is controversial, but I agree, to be honest. I think Aminor put Jadon Sancho in the list of players that need to leave. Carnival says Jadon Sancho should stay for one more season, and I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that Jadon Sancho should get one more season. If only Manchester United could go back and offer him a new contract on less wages. I feel like that's one thing that bothers me, is like, it's not my money at the end of the day, it's the club's money. But because he's on such big wages, people will always be a lot more critical because you earn a lot more money. So people will have a lot more to say, etc. But Jadon Sancho, for me, is not a player that I think we will offload this season unless we are in immediate need to balance the books financially. If that's a part of it, and we need outgoings as much as incomings, then I can anticipate Jadon Sancho wanting to leave. Now, I saw a report, I think it was a week or two ago, that Spurs were interested in a potential 40 million bid for Jadon Sancho. I don't know if that's 40 million just for his right side of his body. That's all they want. Do they want us to cut his body in half and just send that to White Hart Lane or whatever their stadium is called? Because 40 million for Sancho is a joke. That's a joke. That's ridiculous. Jadon Sancho, if we can throw him in, and I know this is just unrealistic, guys, but if we could throw Jadon Sancho in a little 60 million, a little 50. Nah, you know what? If we can put 50 million and Jadon Sancho for Harry Kane, and Spurs would take that, I would run. I would absolutely be gone with the wind. But realistically, I don't think that would happen. So, for that reason, Jadon Sancho, for me, deserves one more chance. But, obviously, like I said, Amad Diallo, Hannibal Mejbri, two potential players that could go one on loan and one out on a permanent. But in terms of senior players, and this goes back to my most recent video where I talk about Manchester United's inability to sell academy players. I talked about our inability to get good money for them when other teams are able to get 20-25 million for their academy players. Eric Bailly, Manchester United have said they're willing to listen to offers for Eric Bailly for 2 million euros. 2 million for Eric Bailly. This is a experienced centre-back, albeit has injury problems. An international player for his national team. Plays for them in African Cup of Nations. regularly called up, has a number of appearances at senior level for Manchester United, was a big part of keeping some players out of that back line when he was fit. But 2 million for me is outrageous. I feel like we could get at least minimum, I'd say 15 million at the least for Eric Bailly. Obviously, it's just for me, his ability or inability to stay fit does not help. So that's probably one part. But Eric Bailly is one player I anticipate will leave this season. Anthony Martial, it's been a great run. Thank you for that debut goal. I will never forget. I was in Canada. I was in Toronto watching that game. 12:30. It was a 12:30 p.m. kickoff in Toronto because it was 5:30 p.m. kickoff in the UK. And I was watching it with family, and that is easily one of my best memories I have of a debut goal for players, for a Manchester United player of recent years. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for that wonderful season that yourself and Rashford and Greenwood had together. When was it? The COVID year, I think it was. But I do think it's finally time to part ways with Anthony Martial. I feel like this season we've seen the benefits of him when he's been in the starting lineup. We've seen how he can play in the starting lineup. We've seen how different we play with him in our starting lineup. But I just feel like it's not realistic enough. I feel like we can't be sentimental. We can't be ruthless. Like, you look at Manchester City, right? And this is no way in me comparing the two teams. This is no way in me comparing the players. But you look at the two teams. You look at Bernardo Silva and Gundogan. Both players leaving, yeah? Gundogan leaving on a free. City are not being sentimental with him. They've passed the point of needing him, which is why apparently they're in the race for Declan Rice, because they only wanted to approach Declan Rice if he was 100% interested in coming and filling that void of Gundogan. Ruthless. They part ways with their player. He just lifted the Champions League for them, did the treble for them. I'm not in any way comparing anything, but if teams can part ways with players that have served justly, why can't we part ways with our players? And for that reason, Anthony Martial, I feel like it's only a matter of time that we will have to part ways with him. Obviously, Zidane Iqbal leaving for his €1 million price tag. I shouldn't laugh because I was so irritated about the news. I remember sending a voice note to the United View group chat when I saw the news, and I was just so livid because I think the day before that I was talking about it on the Full View, saying why I was saying the day before that on the Full View, there's something going on behind the doors, behind like closed doors that we're not aware of. And then the next day the news comes out that Zidane Iqbal was leaving. So he is another player we're offloading. I don't think his sell will not contribute massively to our balance in the books because it's only 850k. That's what Mason Mount will probably make that in a month at Manchester United. Let's put it like that. If Mason Mount joins Manchester United on 200k, he's basically making whatever we received for Zidane Iqbal, we're paying that to Mason Mount for one month. That's crazy. I also saw, I was researching a few days ago salaries at Manchester United, and I don't know how accurate this could be, guys, but I saw a report that said Anthony Elanga was the least paid player at Manchester United. I don't know if this is because he's still on his academy contract. I don't know if anyone in the comments can verify that for me. But it said that he was on 5k a week. And I wasn't too sure about that. I didn't know. I literally checked 3 different websites, and all 3 websites said the same thing. They said he was on 3k a week. He had the opportunity to go out on loan in January. I think it was 5 teams interested in him, all big European teams. Obviously, like I said earlier in the stream, he has good work rate. He gives everything. He's seasoned in terms of in the Sweden national team. I'm glad Carnival said it's true. So Carnival, I'm taking your word for legitness. So I believe you. 5k a week for a player of Anthony Elanga's standard. I think for me that's ridiculous. Whether or not he's playing or not, he's still on his academy contract. If we could get about 20 million for him, even 25, even 25, which for me, I know it's wishful thinking for a player that's not played much, but the market is there for him. There's teams interested in him. He's another player we'll offload. Scott McTominay is another player that Manchester United could offload. I don't think we will. I think we'll keep him for many reasons, i.e. physicality, height. He does offer some things, if we want to admit it. But also FFP rules. FFP rules regarding homegrown players. Obviously, we have to have a number of players that are homegrown talents, and he is one of them. So for that reason, I think Manchester United actually might keep Scott McTominay, but I think we will part ways with Fred. Fulham are interested in him for 20 million. I think maybe 30 we could get for that. I think we could get 30 for that. Maybe that's again wishful thinking. I don't know, guys. Am I being delusional? I'm not too sure. But I did mention Alex Telles wants to return to Porto. Obviously, Harry Maguire. If we could throw him in for a deal of whatever player we want, like I said, whether it's... I know West Ham are selling Declan Rice. If we could throw in a Maguire and 50 million, him and Kurt Zuma would be the best partnership. I can't even finish my sentence, guys, because I know what I'm about to say is just ridiculous. It's a joke. But I think we could sell Harry Maguire. But I do think one of two McFred will leave. Whether I think it's going to be Fred. I don't think... Tabislov says Newcastle want him. I don't think Newcastle are going to get him now that they're getting Tonali. I can't anticipate them going for him. And another player I would expect us to see leaving is, of course, Dean Henderson, which I saw an article the other day that said that Dean Henderson has rubbed Erik ten Hag the completely wrong way. Apparently, Erik ten Hag was not impressed with his interview, does not want him back at Manchester United. He's blacklisted from the club, and which is why he will definitely be one of the first outgoings. Tabislaw says, why not give West Ham both Maguire and Scott plus 50 million for Rice? That means you're just selling both of it. You're valuing both players at 25 million, because they value Declan Rice at 100 million. So if that's what you're saying, I think maybe this is our problem. We undersell our players way too much. We actually undersell our players way too much. Amanor says we should pay West Ham 20 million to take on Harry Maguire. Listen, I was about to say something about Leicester, but one reason why I'm anti-Leicester is because they sold us Maguire for 80 million. Henderson has at least ambitions, and that is more than we can say about many of our players. He does have ambition, but do you think the ego that comes with his ambition is warranted? Because I've seen the ego that he has. We've seen the way... Sometimes I feel like he tries to emulate Emi Martinez on the pitch, especially that I remember that time, which we loved it. I think he saved the penalty against Liverpool, and I think Nottingham Forest took points off them last season, and we loved it. Obviously, everyone loved it because he went around slapping his badge in front of Liverpool players. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the game last season. That kind of stuff I like to see, but I don't think when you're on loan, I don't think you come out and say you talk negative. I don't think you come out and talk negative about stuff. I don't think you could come out and talk negative about players. Yes, top players need to have that ego, but I feel like you should only have that ego when you become a top player. Again, that's my personal opinion. But I think in terms of outgoings, I think we could rack up a good number of money. I think we could get... No, I wouldn't say we'd balance the books, because I definitely feel like value-wise, I feel like that incomings will be a lot more. But I think outgoing... the number of players will be a lot more. So I think we'll see a lot more players leaving Manchester United than we'll see coming in. But I think the value will be quite different. But again, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts about the outgoings, about what we could get for players, what we should bid for players. Let me know about the most recent news about Mason Mount bid 55 million plus 5 million in add-ons, which will be a total around 60 million. Let me know what you guys thought. Make sure you guys like, make sure you guys comment, make sure you guys subscribe. Obviously, my channel is growing. It will continue to grow. Just waiting for some last bit of equipments to come through, and then I can start doing the gaming streams. I will challenge you guys. When I hit 1K subscribers on here, I will challenge KG the comedian on FIFA stream live on my channel. And I will not, furthermore, I will do a live stream and I will try get a way for him to set up his camera and me to set up my camera so you can see both of us at the same time whilst we play FIFA. Because if you guys know from United View, he's been ducking me for so long. And I know Flex already said to me, when is he going to get the chance to come on my channel? I said to him, in due time. But when I get to 1K subscribers, I promise you guys, Mina versus KG FIFA stream, it will be live on this channel. But until then, make sure you guys like, make sure you comment, make sure you guys subscribe. See you guys next week for Friday's episode of Friday Night Lights. Every Friday here, 8 p.m. UK time. Thank you lot so much for sticking in. Next week, I might try do the stream on StreamYard so I can pin comments whilst I'm talking instead of reading it out. As always, shout out to the mods in the chat. Shout out to the people that came over from United View here who see me on United View, and shout out to the people that just found me naturally here on this channel. As always, it's your girl Mina, guys.